Harley-Davidson is using that as an excuse, and I don't like that. And I think the people that ride Harleys are not happy with Harley-Davidson, and I wouldn't be either.
Harley-Davidson fell into serious trouble after Donald Trump accused them of caring more about money than staying loyal to their American riders. The iconic US brand tried to go global and modernize, but the effort backfired badly. Now the company is stuck, uncertain whether to hold on to its classic identity or keep chasing trends it doesn't seem to understand. Trump openly criticized Harley, saying their talk about global challenges was just an excuse to shift jobs and production overseas. He went as far as calling them out for betraying the very bikers who built their reputation. And the difficult part is that he wasn't entirely wrong. He warned that Harley putting foreign markets first could be the beginning of their collapse. Coming from someone whose message was built around American-made pride, that was a damaging blow. It painted Harley as a company turning its back on the loyal riders who had supported them for over a century. Since 1903, Harley had represented American strength and independence, but poor decisions and failure to read the cultural moment left them exposed. People didn't just buy motorcycles, they bought into a lifestyle and a symbol of freedom. When that symbol was undercut by the reality of overseas production, it broke the illusion, and riders, not surprisingly, were angry.
Well, tonight the president going even further, saying Harley-Davidson motorcycles should never be built in another country, and he's now threatening them with new taxes.
When it comes to Thailand, that's where the real trouble began. When Trump pushed his America First trade policies with new tariffs on steel and aluminum, Harley didn't choose to protect jobs at home. Instead, in 2018, they set up a new factory in Thailand to get around Europe's retaliatory tariffs. They explained it as a smart financial decision, but in reality, it was about cutting costs and keeping their European market secure. Harley didn't just shift a few operations quietly either. They shut down their Kansas City plant, boosted production in York, Pennsylvania to look like they were staying loyal, and then expanded heavily in Brazil and India. To many, it felt like they were picking locations all over the globe, anywhere but the US. Trump wasn't pleased. He warned that moving production overseas would strip Harley of its unique American quality. He also made it clear that if those motorcycles were brought back into the US market, they'd face steep tariffs. The situation grew worse when it was revealed that the Thailand-made bikes weren't only for foreign markets. Some of them were assembled there and sold to American riders too. That hit hard with Harley's most loyal fans, who felt cheated that the company was pushing overseas-made products while still claiming to be the face of American patriotism. And from there, the challenges only deepened. When Trump launched his trade war and claimed businesses were coming back to America, Harley answered by announcing production would move to Thailand. Trump didn't take that well and even pointed to India's high tariffs on American motorcycles, calling out Harley's global approach. But Harley refused to back down. They insisted it wasn't about politics, only about the numbers, just basic economics. The problem was, their customers didn't care about math. They were buying into a lifestyle, an image, something bigger than the product itself. That lifestyle didn't match up with motorcycles stamped made in Thailand, and when Trump criticized Harley openly, the financial hit was immediate, with their stock price dropping quickly. Investors started worrying. The brand that once stood for rebellion and loyalty now looked like just another corporation hiding behind strategy reports. It wasn't the first time Harley faced a crisis either. Back in the 1980s, they nearly collapsed against cheap Japanese imports until the US government stepped in with tariffs, and Harley doubled down on quality and American-made pride. Today, the situation feels similar, but also more complicated. This time it's about losing identity while trying to compete globally, handle rising costs, and deal with customers who still want Milwaukee-built motorcycles. And it runs deeper than Trump's words or Harley's decisions. It's about the riders who feel let down. For decades, they believed in the Harley image. The sound, the pride, the American spirit. What they got instead was a quiet electric bike, factories overseas, and corporate press releases full of excuses. Trump didn't create the outrage, he just lit the spark. When he tweeted that Harley would face heavy taxes if they wanted to sell their bikes in the US, the company's PR team must have panicked. That single statement shifted the issue from business decisions into a full-on cultural battle. Harley clearly hadn't prepared for that. Suddenly, it wasn't only about motorcycles anymore. It became political. Trump dragged Harley straight into the culture war, framing their global expansion as part of a larger woke problem in America. The moment he used the word woke, Harley was in trouble with many of its loyal riders. Overnight, the brand that once symbolized rebellion and strength was lumped in with debates over gender identity and corporate social responsibility. Harley had stumbled badly. Their longtime customers, dedicated riders, factory workers, people who wore leather out of necessity instead of fashion, wanted nothing to do with quiet scooters or high-tech gadgets. They wanted raw power, American steel, and tradition, but Harley leaned toward eco-friendly branding in overseas markets, a move that alienated the very people who kept them alive for decades. At the same time, many of Trump's supporters had lost jobs when factories relocated abroad, so when he accused Harley of chasing profits instead of honoring American values, it struck a nerve. It felt real. Not because it was some groundbreaking political argument, but because it echoed what many already believed. Riders who had once seen Harley as an extension of themselves now felt the company had abandoned its roots, trading loyalty and heritage for tax breaks and foreign sales. And the frustration went far deeper than dollars. It was about betrayal. Experts were clear. This has always been about emotion. People felt a strong bond with Harley-Davidson, often passed down from parents to children. The motorcycles weren't just transportation, they represented identity. For many, Harley stood as a symbol of American pride and carried a reputation built on toughness and tradition. But that image began to shift with production moving overseas, the push toward electric models, and constant messaging about being environmentally friendly. It was almost like watching a rugged biker suddenly trade leather and grit for trendy fashion and a sleek electric car. Harley's strength was always its image of rebellion and toughness, but now the focus has turned toward green technology and inclusivity. Change itself isn't always a bad thing, but when your core audience literally has tattoos celebrating the rough biker spirit and you offer them a quiet electric motorcycle with an app, it doesn't feel like progress. It feels like confusion. So how is Harley trying to fix its image problem? It looks like they're going all in on electric bikes because nothing screams tough like a motorcycle that hums softly instead of roars. To make up for it, they're experimenting with fake engine sounds. Yes, artificial noise, because nothing says freedom like a pre-programmed soundtrack. When you rev the throttle, speakers play recordings of an engine. That's their big idea. Harley-Davidson also has to worry about keeping its loyal American riders from getting frustrated and causing scenes at dealerships. The problem is younger people can't afford high-priced motorcycles when they can barely keep up with rent, and older riders don't care about Bluetooth updates or digital gadgets. The brand's popularity is slipping, and now Harley is talking about teaming up with tech companies to bring in advanced features and AI-powered safety tools. Because of course, Harley-Davidson is suddenly the expert in artificial intelligence. Before long, your bike might ask how your mood is while you're riding. It might recommend switching to a calm mode you never wanted in the first place. Meanwhile, the dealerships themselves are changing too. Harley wants to sell more than just motorcycles. They're pushing a lifestyle package. That means when you walk in, you're not only looking at bikes, but also at clothing racks, event tickets, specialty coffee, maybe even fitness programs. They want the whole place to feel more like an Apple store for motorcycles, where the vibe and the merchandise matter just as much as the machines. The funniest part of this whole plan is that Harley suddenly wants to focus on its longtime riders again. After years of building factories overseas, watching their stock value sink, and losing the loyalty that once defined their brand, they now act as if customer feedback is their big discovery. It's almost comical to imagine their surprise when someone points out the obvious idea of producing bikes in Milwaukee again. They also talk about growing the number of skilled workers in the US, which sounds promising on the surface, but they never explain how this will actually happen, or when, or even where. What they offer instead are vague statements and hopeful talk that feels more like a press release than a plan. It's a nice sounding story, but words alone don't mean much. The reality is clear. Harley is standing on shaky ground. On one side, there's the traditional approach that Harley-Davidson has built its reputation on for generations, and on the other is a modern, forward-looking path that promises innovation but risks alienating those who brought the brand to where it is today. In between these two opposing directions sit uncertain investors who are wary of where their money is going, and frustrated riders who feel that the company they once trusted no longer represents them. Harley-Davidson is trying to weave together elements of the future with echoes of the past, but instead of coming across as a clear strategy, the effort feels more like confusion over the brand's true identity. The more they attempt to balance these opposing forces, the more obvious it becomes that there is no strong plan holding it all together. Industry observers have pointed out that what has always made Harley-Davidson more than just another motorcycle company is the emotional connection American riders feel toward it. That bond has been the foundation of Harley's success, and without it, the company becomes just another name in the crowded motorcycle market. Unfortunately, that sense of loyalty and pride is slipping away each time Harley shifts production overseas in search of cheaper costs, or presents an ultra-quiet electric motorcycle that clashes with the roaring image riders associate with the brand. They chip away at a story that has been carefully built over more than a century. Every misstep makes the legend feel less authentic, less tied to the values that made it iconic in the first place. Even in politics, the issue has been reduced to a simple truth. When Donald Trump commented on Harley-Davidson's choices, regardless of whether you support him or not, he managed to capture the heart of the problem in a single sentence. It resonated because beneath all the complicated financial explanations, business strategies, and flashy new technology, there is a very real divide over what Harley-Davidson is supposed to represent. This split is not just about motorcycles, it's about identity, tradition, and belief. And as long as the company continues to straddle both sides without choosing a clear path, the divide will only grow sharper, leaving riders and investors alike wondering where Harley really belongs. Harley-Davidson is no longer just up against the same type of rivals it once battled back in the 1980s, when the main concern was fending off competition from Japanese motorcycle manufacturers. The challenges today are far more complicated and go beyond simple head-to-head product comparisons. The company is now dealing with global financial pressures that affect every industry, rapid advances in technology that are reshaping how people view transportation and vehicles, and a deep identity crisis over what Harley-Davidson even stands for in the modern era. These problems aren't likely to take the company down overnight, but the slow erosion has already begun. If Harley continues to distance itself from the very riders and communities that built its reputation and gave the brand its iconic status, it risks hollowing out the foundation that made it matter in the first place. The truth is, Harley-Davidson probably won't vanish as a business. The name will still exist, motorcycles will still roll off the assembly line, and the logo will still be sold on t-shirts and jackets. But what could fade away is the cultural significance that once made it so powerful. A brand of this magnitude becoming irrelevant is a far bigger disaster than closing factories or losing sales, because prestige and meaning are things you cannot easily rebuild once they're gone. Trying to patch the situation with gimmicks like artificial engine sounds or marketing spin won't fix the real issue, which is that Harley has begun to lose its soul in the eyes of its loyal fans. The decline has only just started, and while the fall may not be immediate, the trajectory is clear. The story of what happens to Harley-Davidson from here is only beginning to unfold, and it promises to be a wild ride worth keeping an eye on.